Hello everybody and welcome to SharePoint Power Hour. I'm Laura Rogers and I have Joelle Jobson here. Say hello.
Hello, everybody.
And we have been doing our Power Hour for over 6 years, and this is a show, if you've never watched before, this is a show where we dive into pretty easy things that you can do in SharePoint and Office 365 without having to go really deep into any kind of custom code, or we're not programmers, and we don't go deep into any really hardcore admin like server side stuff. So it's pretty much all end usery, power usery type stuff that you can do in Microsoft 365, Office 365, whatever it's called, SharePoint. And today our topic is Power Apps portals. Now this is totally out of the realm of what we usually do in Power Hour. We have never dived into Dynamic CRM before, but I send out an email, a newsletter the day before Power Hour with some topics to vote on, and I put Power Apps portals as one of the topics, so you all, that's the topic that won. And so Power Apps portals, though, is Microsoft Dynamics CRM. So this has nothing to do with SharePoint. This has nothing to do with most anything we ever talk about on Power Hour. We've got a little flow that we can talk about, but this is going to be a completely new interface, new product to most of you. Dynamic CRM has a cost to it. I don't know about licensing. I'm not sure off the top of my head what it is. Something like $40 per user per month. I'm not sure. It probably depends on how big your organization is and what kind of licensing, things like that. But so I don't know the cost. I know that Power Apps Portals does have a couple of different costs. You have the ability to have a whole login interface where users can log into this web portal and have information that they fill out. You also have the concept of people being able to fill out anonymous forms. So the reason we're talking about Power Apps Portals is because Microsoft has been touting this as the way to bring people to your site to fill out forms and possibly fill out anonymous forms. And you can have a whole customer interface where they have all of their customer data that they fill out and information about their company, and have them actually be able to edit records about themselves in this whole system. So it does have licensing, and it's different for whether they're logging in or whether they're anonymous. But this Power Apps portal is a public web page. I created one. I'll put the link in the chat. And I created just a temporary test one that's only going to last 90 days. So feel free to peruse it. I just created it this morning. So this is it gives you, when you create a Power Apps portal, it gives you a public URL. And so this is what we're working from. And so it's a website, and that you can create forms for people to fill out. When people fill out the forms, they can come and it's anonymous data if you'd like it to be. And the information, if you want to do something like send it over to SharePoint or send it in an email, then Flow can be used for that. So we'll talk about the interface and how to create the forms, how to create the portal, how to create a web form, and how to make grab that data when it comes in with a flow and do something else with it. Dynamic CRM is a whole beast of a product. I mean, trying to teach you Dynamic CRM in an hour would be like trying to teach you all of SharePoint and Azure AD in an hour. I mean, it's an insane amount of to learn. So it's a huge, huge product. So this is just going to be a very small dipping our toe into it and getting a basic overview of some concepts. But there's a lot that, we don't have the bandwidth to go into in an hour. So, all right. So you can see I built this website. Let me show you where I started. I created this sort of whole demo environment, just a whole demo tenant that I'm using for this. So I started off with, let me go to just web.powerapps.com, just the main. Oh, let me share my screen. Steve says, can we learn all about SharePoint in the next Power Hour, please? Yeah. Oh, and if you've never seen Power Hour before, we have a chat over in Slack. There's a link below whichever video you're watching to join the chat. Okay, so I am on the Power Apps main interface. And when I click to create a new app, I can create a new portal. And so what I did was I started off, I was in my default environment in Power Apps. And when I click to create a new portal, it actually says to work with apps, you need a database. I don't have permissions to create a database in this default environment. Do you want to create a new one? So I did, this takes a while, so I did this ahead of time. So I clicked to create a new environment. And so this is the new environment that I created. And it's going to be temporary. It's just a 30-day trial environment. So this is the environment I created in Power Apps to create my portal in. So then I went create and I chose portal from blank. And then I already created a portal, but this is what the screen looks like that I went to. I gave it a name and I gave it an address. So the address is that URL. So I called it like IWM test 2. So that's the URL that you're creating that's obviously got to be unique. And it spins up your portal. So it takes a little while when it spins up your portal, so I've already done that part. So then I've got my portal, I called it IW Mentor Test 2. And then I actually have some settings. That's a whole other interface that will take you to when you go to your settings, and that is over here. There's not really anything that I needed to do in settings to get all this to work, but that's just one extra spot that I wanted to point out to you of stuff that you can dig through. And again, a million different screens and settings and things you can do in Dynamic CRM. Okay, so let's go over to I'm going to close this one. So I'll show you where I started from. So I went to, it spun up my portal, and see it says type portal over here, and I just go edit. Okay, so this is taking me into an interface to create web pages. So I'm not just creating a form. A Power Apps portal is a whole web portal of information. Joelle, can you get that chat for me? Sorry, I closed it. Let me mute my watch. Okay, cool. So this is a whole web page. So this gives me a web page. It starts off with a few pages already created. See, it has services, product A and B. And then when I click Browse Website, it actually takes me to that web page. So this is the home page of the web page that it created. See, it's got nothing on it. It's got all just this dummy information. It just says Contoso, build your website. So this is all kind of similar to the concept of the way we edit just pages in SharePoint, where it's got just little content areas that we can click in and type things and insert things. So this is my web page. So what I did was I created, you have this whole structure. So I created this concept of requests, which is where I'm putting a couple of forms in here for people to fill out to show you a couple of different concepts. But all this information, a lot of this was just kind of already in here, and I added a couple of different things. But let me show you where those are. So each time I create a page in this site, when I'm trying to kind of navigate around in pages, they're all just over here. So I can do like, pretend like I'm a homeowners association, and I want all the people in the neighborhood to be able to log in and see information about what's going on in the neighborhood, edit information about themselves and their house or something like that, and have just a whole sort of database of information about the neighbors in the neighborhood. So I can add a child page, and this lets me kind of build out my navigation. So it's similar to the pages in SharePoint. So I'll call this, so called it new page 1. And I'm going to say house info First I'm not showing you forms yet. I'm just showing you pages and kind of getting around in this interface. And I can say I want to have a page with child links, sure. And it's got just these sort of templates that are built in that you can pick from. All right, so this is I created something called house info, so then I can take this thing and I can put it as a sub page, just like in SharePoint navigation. And I see I put it under the wrong one, so I can just move that down. So I'm just kind of rearranging these. And then that needs to go promote it up one so that these are both under here. All right, so then what I'm going to do is start creating a page to put a form on. So I created this page called requests. And when you go to the web page and you go to requests, that's where I created a few pages underneath that to put the forms on. So when I go to, I created the Power Hour sign up, and you've probably filled out the Power Hour sign up before, but that's the one I created in Forms, in Microsoft Forms, which is only anonymous. So Microsoft Forms is just anonymous, and the big difference between, one big difference between Forms and Portals as far as typical requirements that people have is that this one can let people log in. So you could literally just go to this site right now and click login, type your email address, and it lets you create a free account in this little database. And that way you could have people authenticate, you could have external users to your company authenticate, you can go as far as defining specific domains that you want to be able to authenticate with yours, and guest users in your Azure AD that you want to be able to allow in. So we're not going to be able to get into any of that, but that's all possible. The concept of having people log in and fill in forms, as opposed to just people filling in a web form that's anonymous with a Microsoft form that knows nothing about them. All right. So, so this is just one form that I created. So I'm going to go and create a brand new page so you can see what that experience looks like. And I'll just do page with title, just so it's not completely blank. Okay, so what am I going to do for my example? I did a Power Hour request form. I got the concept of a homeowners association where you can have people in the neighborhood logging in. What's another concept? Like customers being able to log in and submit help tickets or something like that? What do you think? Eileen, I don't know about E3. I don't know if E3 is related at all to Dynamics CRM. I don't think E3 is related to Dynamics CRM. I think Dynamics is its own animal. So, Joelle, can you find that there's when you go just Google Power Apps Portals, there's a web page that it takes you to that I found fairly easy yesterday that has like scroll down for licensing information. Sure. Yes, Jam Potty. Andrew, yes, you can upload files. The thing about files in Dynamics CRM, from what I recall, is that when you start dealing with files, you really are using the SharePoint in the back end. So, oh yeah, kids sports teams, that's a good idea. Let's do kids sports teams. That's instead of just the usual, just customers filling in service requests, kids sports teams. And one we did for a customer a couple of years ago was a state government, and we created all their forms for people to fill out, like when someone needed to report potholes, incidents, traffic lights being broken, just anything like that having to do with just things around the state. That so they had all their external forms for people in the public to be able to fill out information of things like that. So that's another just concept of why you would create one of these. All right, so let's do kids sports teams. So this is going to be sports. I'll just call it sports. And then you got to kind of give it a second each time you click between these little boxes, or else it'll keep clearing out what you're typing. Call it sports form. Okay, now you'll notice that when I go to components here, this is kind of like web parts. So this is where I can insert things onto my page. And look, I can even insert Power BI. A list is where it's like the concept of a SharePoint list. It's like a table in a database. And then a form is what I want. So I can go insert a form. And so now it's got a form on my page. Okay, so you'll notice that I kind of came from this a different direction than a lot of places that you'll see showing you how to do Power Apps portals, because I don't have a form yet. I don't have a list yet. I don't have, none of that exists yet. So once you get to the point where you're inserting a form on a page in Dynamics CRM, Power Apps portals, you have to have an entity. So that takes some Dynamics CRM knowledge. An entity is like a table in a database, kind of like a SharePoint list. So I actually need to have an entity ahead of time. There are a whole bunch of just built-in, just example entities that exist, like a ton of them that exist just when you have a common data service database for the first time. But I'll show you how to go ahead and create one. So start telling me what some fields are that I need to create in the chat and Slack. So I need to kind of just get off of this page. I'm just gonna kind of synchronize this and leave this interface, because when I add a new entity, I'm gonna need to completely refresh this anyway. So I'm just gonna go back to the main Power Apps portal. Okay, so I go back to the main Power Apps portal, and then let me close some of these other tabs I have open. And I need to go to data. And now I need to make sure that I'm in my right environment. This is the environment that I just created when I right before I created my portal, when it said create environment. So I need to make sure that I'm in the right environment. And then I go to data and entities. And these entities are my tables. Now, Common Data Service is going to have a cost. I don't know what the difference is between the cost of having transactions and databases in the Common Data Service versus that Dynamics CRM licensing for users logging in and filling out forms. I'm not sure if the two are even related at all, but I know that that Common Data Service is not, quote, free, and it is part of maybe some other licensing, but there's definitely a cost to it. It's just something to consider before you go in here and just start creating a bunch of stuff. Okay, now let's see, what did Nick say? If for any users to concern the Power Apps portal, if you have it set up where the user authenticates, then the only thing the user has to have is a Microsoft Live ID. If you're paying for the portal and allowing external users to access the information in the portal. Additionally, you can set it up for anonymous access. The key takeaway is that your end user is able to submit their information directly to a secure location without a middleman. Okay, thanks, Nick, for the insight. And by default, though, just when you first create a portal, it's got both. It's got the ability to just, like, you could go to that one that I just created and go click on request and go click on the Power Hour request form and fill it in anonymously. You could also click the login button at the top and log in and just give it just some email address and create an account. So it's got kind of all of it is just wide open, and anyone could kind of do either of those things. Of course, if you fill a form in anonymously, you're not ever going to be able to go back in and see a form you filled out or edit it, right? Okay. So setting up the authentication and deciding which authentication methods to allow is definitely something that's out of the scope of this 1 hour intro. Okay, so I'm going to create a new entity for sports team. And it gives me a plural display name. I'm just going to say the display. Is each item in this list going to be a team, or is it going to be a player? So I probably would have to have teams and players, right? So that would be that gets into the whole relational database concept, and I don't think we have the bandwidth to start creating lookups and related tables and stuff in this in this hour. So I'm just going to do this as if it's a each player. So I'm going to do like player last name is going to be just the first field that it creates. And as you can see in Dynamics, there are a ton of other settings you can dig through. So, all right, so I created my entity. So it's provisioning my entity in the background. Oh, Valerie said, wow, the cost for this is amazingly high. Oh, did you look it up? Okay, let's see. Okay, so it's creating in the background, and you're going to see a bunch of stuff populate. There it goes. Look at that. So you see a bunch of stuff populating, and these are all just sort of like in SharePoint where you have those system fields like created by, modified by. This is all the system fields that it just populated for me. So this player last name is the only one that I've created so far. All these other ones are built in. So I'm going to go ahead and just add a couple more fields, player first name, and text, and then I'll create player email. And I can also have a data type of email. So you have all these data types that are slightly different than what you've got in SharePoint, but a lot of them are the same. And what else? Team name. I'll just do team name as text since I'm not doing a whole lookup in multiple lists and stuff. Actually, I can do what's called an option set in here. So you can see I'll have all these option sets that are built in. An option set is like a drop-down box of options that you can use across multiple entities. So I'll just say team name. What were some of those team? We had a bunch of team names for my daughter's basketball league. They had like names like Sky and Lightning. I don't know. See, I'm just making stuff up. These aren't very ferocious team names, are they? Maybe we should have like tigers. Okay, so they're my team names. And then so you can give it a default value. Coach name. I'll just make that text and say manager, and that'll be a yes or no. So each kid can say pick like a Boolean of whether they're a manager or not. Default no, and you can make any of these required. So when you get over to the form and you start looking at it on the web page and you are noticing that a lot of these aren't required and they should be, let me go ahead and save my entity. This is where you have to go. You have to go to entities, you have to pick your entity, and then go to the fields and make them required here. So I'm going to go back into a couple of these. Sharks and jets. Oh. So I had, see, I made, last name was the first one we created and it's required, but they have this additional option called recommended. That's not a concept we're used to in SharePoint either. So I made that required. I definitely want to make the email required. There. And then you always just have to hit save entity at the bottom. You have a couple of other concepts that you will be familiar with from SharePoint, like views. Relationships is going to be something more that you're familiar with if you've ever used Microsoft Access or SQL. Then you have this whole relationships list where that's where you're going to have your lookups and stuff like that. But views are going to be just like exactly like the concept of SharePoint views, where you can have you define which columns you want to be in each view. And see, I pick a view and it's got is player last name and created on, and I can add like player first name, player email. So I can add more of these to my view. So that's where you can get to the views. And then I'll show you the forms. Okay, I think I just published that. Now, it automatically created a form for me called information. But I want to show you something that was a real gotcha when I was doing this, and it was super annoying. So let me go, because I want you to experience what I experienced and how I figured out a way around it. And with my luck, it won't happen again. We'll see. So I was in here. I created my entity. And I went to my new page that I just created. So let's see. Where's my team? Oh, sports. So I inserted this form control, but I didn't fill in any information over here about the form. So let's see, my sports info. And then this is where I have to go pick that sports team. See, sports team. Now, if you're on this screen and you flip over and create the entity and then just go back to the screen, it's not going to magically be here. You do have to completely like hard refresh the whole thing so that it recognizes and finds your new entity. So I only have one form. Just like in SharePoint, kind of. SharePoint doesn't really have this concept unless you've dug into SharePoint and like behind the scenes, the concept of multiple forms. But you do have the concept of multiple forms in CRM, where you could have just different forms for different purposes with different fields showing that you could pick from. But it's going to have one form by default. All right, so I pick information, and then mode insert. So insert means new. So I'm definitely doing a new form right here. I'm not doing an edit existing form, and I'm not doing a read only. Insert is new. I even have some success settings, like I can define what I want it to say. I can decide whether I want to show CAPTCHA. So I'll just say maybe I only want to show CAPTCHA for anonymous users, and I'm not worried about authenticated ones. So, all right. So I picked my form. Let me click back over here and move this thing out of the way. Come on. Did it save it? There we go. So it refreshed it. Okay, so now let's go see what the form looks like. So I go click Edit Form. It's a nice little easy button, right? To go edit the form. Not so fast. We'll see. How's the bandwidth this time? Is it smoother than it was last week? I had a bunch of... Maybe it's because I never did share my video separately with Joelle.
Yeah, it seems pretty smooth.
Oh, good. Okay. So they're all having this licensing conversation in the chat, which, again, yeah, ask your TAM. No idea. Okay, so it gives me this, maximize that. Boy, that is... Okay, so all it has by default is that first field that I created on the form. It doesn't have all the other ones, but it lists them down the left, see? So I can go add player. It's a nice little easy interface to add some fields, and you can just drag them onto the page like that, and it adds the fields. And you even have, for each field that you select, you have some other options you can do over here. Hide on phone, you can hide them. All kinds of extra stuff. All right, I'm going to save. Well, I'm going to go ahead and just publish this. Now what I noticed is that, let me go back over to my web page. Now I'm over in a completely different browser session, so I actually logged in as, I made up this user account that I logged in as. So this is not, I'm not logged in as the user that created this Power App. I'm in a completely different session. So I'm going to go to Sports, which is this new page I created, and notice, look at this. Player last name is the only one that I have, but I did click and edit that form and added more fields to it, so what the heck? Well, definitely something to know is that I just happen to have a little bit of dynamic CRM experience from a couple of years ago. So I knew to go back in and look at, let me go this way. I'm just gonna open up a new tab that's got my main Power Apps interface. And Chris helped me out with this too, because he's actually got more dynamics. He was immersed in a dynamic CRM project a few years ago, and he has a dynamic CRM certification. So I'm gonna go to my entity, go to my sports entity, and then go to Forms. And notice when I click on Main, this is the one that I just edited. See, it has those two fields. You can't really see, it has those two fields I just added. But I'm going to go over to this quick view form. Okay, so on my quick view form, now I'm going to go add, I'm just going to put all the fields in here. Player email, coach, team name, manager, yes or no. Okay, and then publish that. So that is the quick view form. So this is definitely something buggy that hopefully Microsoft will fix. The fact that when I click the nice little easy screen that says edit form, when I'm over in the interface creating the web pages, it has me edit the main form, but when I go to the web page and look at the form, it's got the quick, what's it called? Quick view form. Okay, so now let me go back to sports and just going to this web page and refreshing it. Let's see if it does it. Oh wait, no, I need to go back to that other interface. Okay, so now let me go back to my sports team. Close that. Okay. Okay, let's see if that worked. Oh yeah, I just had to hard refresh it, that's all. Okay, so now I've got Rogers. And there's my form. So the actual form building interface gives you the ability to add columns and things like that. So let's go back and look at that. So I'll go back to my quick view form here. Again, entities, sports team, and then forms. And then my quick view form is the one that it actually puts on the web page. Come on. It's taking a second. But it lets you change kind of what your interface is down here. Wow, it's slow. Oh, there it goes. So it has this is inside of the form. This is in the actual form editing experience here. So let's see. I'm trying to decide kind of how deep we're going to go into. We could probably go. The reason it's the quick view form is because it's got this really simple layout. So we could most likely create another form and then point to that one instead of this one if we wanted it to look different. Okay, so let's go do that. I'm going to go, so I've got my forms here, and I'll do add form, and I'm going to say I want to add another main form. Eric, at least he said he loved flows, but Power App seems to fail on simple things like rendering correctly in the browser. Okay, let's see. Okay, so here's this is a main form that I created. Here's this whole rich interface on how you can make it a nicer form. So it has all these different types of sections that you can add to it. So you can put different fields in different sections down the page and have a much bigger, more complex form, especially if you have a lot of different fields. So you can build, add all these little types of components to your form. Now, back to just this concept of having a web form and having people submit it. What if you just want to have a quick Power Apps portal with just a simple form, and you want to gather that information, and maybe you want to put it in SharePoint, maybe you want somebody to get an email, you want some kind of notification when when the form gets filled out. Let's go back to sort of the simple and not get too in the weeds with this, and go look at maybe how we could capture just to be able to run a flow when something gets submitted, right? And then you let me know kind of just questions you have as to which direction to go beyond that. Okay. Let's go create a flow. So I'm going to do a new, I hate this little thing, I'll just do skip. Now notice that I have to be in this environment over in Power Automate. Because if I switch over to the default environment, I'm not going to have, watch this, this is what I did first. I wasn't paying attention to what environment I was in, and I tried to type common data service here, and it wasn't in there, and I couldn't figure it out. It took me a few seconds. So you have to switch over to the environment that actually has a common data service database. So this is the one that I'm working in. So I'll just go create a new flow. And common data service is going to be your trigger and when a record is created. So if I want to know when somebody fills something out. So this one, and then my sports. Come on, sports. There we go. I'm not even sure what the scope means in here. We'll try a couple of different things. I told you all I'm not a CRM person. I never pretty much done like maybe one or two small projects having to do with common data service. I'm definitely not super familiar with it, so SharePoint is more my forte. So what is this email? I've got this admin account that I'm logged into. I think that's, yeah. So I'll say test. And then when I want to put stuff in the body of the email, I'll say first, and I can then put the first name, last. So I'll just do that. I'll just put a couple of fields in here and then see if I can, you know, when I fill out a new sport form, see if it sends an email. And you all can do this too, because I sent you all the URL to this public website, so you could go fill out the sport form as well. So I think I saved it. Let me see. New sport form. Okay, and I'm going to go back to sports form, and I'll call it what did I miss? Any questions? Yes, Anthony. You can use Flow just like I used Flow when a new common data service is created. You can use the Flow when a new Microsoft form is filled in, and have it, as soon as a new form is filled in, it creates a list item in SharePoint. So absolutely. I think I've done that on multiple power hours in the past too. Yes, I agree with you, Nick. Let's see, what was Eric saying? Yeah, I agree with you, Nick, in your answer to whatever the question was. Don't try to stay away from customized list forms, Power Apps. Try to do standalone Power Apps instead. I wrote a couple of blog posts about that, like how to use Power Apps as a front end. Okay, I filled in my form. Let's see if it triggered that email. I think it did. Look at that. It worked. So whatever option I picked, it worked. In here I picked business unit, and the email was triggered. So I filled in the form and it sent an email. So you could have people fill in a form and have it create a list item in SharePoint if you don't want to use the common data service. Again, I'm not sure how the licensing works as far as, you know, the amount of data. I think it has to do maybe with the amount of data that you're storing in it and that kind of thing. But that is where the data is arriving. When someone fills out a form in Power Apps Portal, the data is arriving in that entity in the common data service. I can also go over to data. So when I'm in this entity sports team, look, I can see the actual list items that people have sent in, and I could, this is just more for admins to be able to quickly see all the data that's been submitted, but it gives you the ability to go straight to the data or go get the data or export the data, because this screen is not necessarily going to show you everything. So I can flip over to all fields. It's if you've got thousands of records, you're not going to see them all on this little screen. So, but I do have all the fields captured and I can look at them here. Okay, so those are my forms and my views. Now, let's go back over to that concept of getting just this sort of web page together. I'll close this one. Publish that. Okay, close that. Just want to make sure it finishes saving. The interface getting around in these is a little awkward because I kind of just exit out of here and kind of flip around. Okay, back to my interface here. So if I want to have, what is my house info? So my house info is where I want to have pages up underneath it. So I'll go move that up and make it a subpage. See, it put it as a subpage of About Us. Yeah, and as you build the subpages though, the nice thing is that it's actually putting it in the navigation at the top. House info. Edit house. I keep clicking on these instead of clicking the there. And then sports. And then you have a whole concept of authentication. So let's go look over here. So when I go to this home page, I'll actually go to it as a completely different, in a different browser. And see, anybody can just, by default, anybody can sign in. So I can choose register, and if I register, I'll put just another email address. Sure. Okay, so this has actually got a whole interface built in, and this is an entity that already exists that's just built into Dynamics CRM, where it's got all these records for first name and last name. All right, so now I'm logged in as Laura Tester because I created an account. Okay, let's see. Oh yeah, I'm doing a session at GlobalCon. Let me go ahead and get that link. You all are talking about that. And do y'all have any questions before I kind of change topics? Do y'all have any questions about just, I went over the basic concepts of just putting a form on a page and submitting it and where the data goes, and then how you could get to that data with a flow. Do you have any other questions about this? I know a lot of you are saying that you can't afford Dynamics, you can't afford the Common Data Service, it's not in the budget, it's insanely expensive. So Valerie says, I think that I will continue to not use portals. So I'm just curious if you all have any other questions about what I've showed you with these pieces and how they go together and kind of where the data goes. All right, nothing. Joelle, did you notice anything that I haven't addressed yet?
Don't think so. I think most of the conversations were contained.
Yeah, I think that, again, kind of like I suspected, I think Power Apps Portal sounds like a cool concept, but most people, once they realize it's Dynamics and realize how complex it is, it's not something they want to delve into. But they do make it easy to create a portal, and the web page kind of creation interface is pretty simple. You just, once you get into the forms and building those, it can get crazy complicated with forms and views and authentication. So there's a lot to learn when it comes to like diving deeper into a lot of those topics.
It's certainly good for situations where you have a lot of users that don't need to authenticate. I think that there's the cost there could be, worth it.
Yeah, I think
so, having to pay for authenticated users, there's like a lower cost for that, and you could do a lot of cool stuff with it. So
yeah, what did it say? Something like $100 a month for having anonymous users.
Yeah, it was like 100,000 views, I think. Page
for
views.
100,000 forms filled in, $100 a month. Is that what you're saying?
Page views, I think, is the way they define it.
Page views, okay.
Yeah.
So that's not forms filled out. That's just people hitting each page.
Yeah, but I think Nick made a point that you can actually use one page and have multiple things on it.
Oh, okay, yeah. Interesting. Okay, so let's see. Now, GlobalCon 2, I did record a session for that I'm doing. Let me get my link I have a special link for that to share with y'all. So let me make sure and get y'all the right link. to it. Where did it go? Because I have an affiliate link that I use. Sorry, I'm trying to make sure I use the same browser so I can find, oh, there it is. Okay. I have all these different sort of browser sessions that I use for different purposes. Okay, here we go. Copy and, okay, GlobalCon 2 is coming up. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the link I just shared with you. Okay, the session that I am doing on GlobalCon 2 is, let me just go to their main. There's a lot on this page and it looks gigantic on my monitor. Here it is. Okay, digitally signing forms in Power Apps. So this is a session that I'm doing about how to use the PIN input to capture somebody's signature and then have the output be to generate a PDF that's got the signature in it. And I know that you all have probably seen multiple ways to be able to accomplish this with like writing a bunch of HTML to be able to generate sort of the format of what the document's going to look like. This is actually a pretty simple method that I'm going to show in this session. And if you're in my Ultimate membership for our iwmentor.com, this is the thing that I showed a couple of office hours meetings ago of how to insert the signature and how to use that Word document template. So if you were there, then it's the same thing. But also, if you're an Ultimate member, we're having an office hours meeting tonight at 8 p.m. Central. All right, I think that wraps it up. Let me go ahead and go back to my main thing here. All right. So GlobalCon is June 15th through 19th. Click the link